One of the secrets to MacGyver's success as a series, one of the key ingredients that makes it such a classic in the annals of cheesy 1980s action-adventure television, is the absurdly overstuffed personal history of its titular hero. It's difficult to tell exactly how old MacGyver is meant to be at any given time because, except for a brief shot of a passport showing his birth date in one episode, his exact age is never established. And even if it were to be established in one episode, the nature of MacGyver is such that there's no telling if or when the writers of the show might have changed their minds and decided MacGyver was older or younger than he was previously supposed to be. Best guess, MacGyver is somewhere in his early to mid-30s in the show's first season, and my, oh my, what a breadth of experience he's managed to cram into that relatively young life. As revealed throughout the run of the show, before the events of the series, MacGyver went lots of places, did lots of things, pursued many wildly disparate interests, and held many different jobs, and oh yes, loved many, many, many women. MacGyver has more ex-girlfriends than Zsa Zsa Gabor had ex-husbands, and for those of you too young to pick up that reference, it's a lot, is what I'm saying. And I'm not just talking about people MacGyver dated for a little while, but it just didn't work out. I'm talking about serious, life-changing, we almost got married, the one that got away kind of relationships. There are enough ones that got away in MacGyver's past to field a PWHL team. If you didn't pick up that reference, it probably had nothing to do with your age. When we take all of MacGyver's exes and add them to the assorted love interests he acquires throughout the run of the series, we end up with quite an impressive lineup. That being the case, I've decided to start a mini-series within this series of MacGyver videos dedicated to examining the many loves of MacGyver, and I'm calling this occasional feature The Many Loves of MacGyver. The first of MacGyver's old flames we meet appears in the second half of the show's first season, in the episode titled, appropriately enough, Flame's End. Her name is Amy Austin, and she's dead! Okay, not really, but it looks that way for a while. A short while. A couple of minutes. So what happens is Amy calls MacGyver for help after learning that her boss at the nuclear power plant where she works has just died under suspicious circumstances. Amy thinks her boss was murdered and that whoever killed him is after her too. So after many years apart, she reaches out to MacGyver for help, and MacGyver interrupts a pretty intense table hockey game with his landlord and potential future ex-girlfriend Susan to answer the phone. Sensing that Amy is in trouble from the way she says that someone is trying to kill her and begs him for help, Mac agrees to meet her the next day at the beach. As Mac waits for Amy to arrive, he casts his mind back into the past, to the time when he and Amy shared a love they both were sure would last forever. We dissolve to a flashback set in, the early 70s? So like 15 years before? MacGyver and Amy both appear to be the exact same age they are in the present day, which I find hilarious, especially since right before the start of the flashback, we get a voiceover from MacGyver where he reflects on how much he's changed. We get glimpses of MacGyver's past here and there throughout the run of the series, and I'm always a little disappointed to find they've cast an age-appropriate actor to play the younger version of MacGyver. I want to see Richard Dean Anderson play MacGyver in middle school, damn it! In this flashback, MacGyver's got some exciting news for Amy. He's gone ahead and gotten them both jobs on a cargo ship. They can sail the Adriatic Sea and enjoy Italy and the Greek islands from the belly of a broken-down old tramp steamer. Won't that be great? Amy's like, well, actually, I was gonna go to work at the new nuclear power plant, and I thought maybe you'd want to work there too, since we just graduated from college and you have a degree in physics and all. MacGyver's like, I didn't study physics so I could use the degree to get a job like some nerd. I wanted to understand how the world works, and now I'm going to understand it even better by working as a cook aboard a rusted freighter as it sails from one polluted industrial port to another. Faced with this unexpected, irreconcilable difference, Amy and MacGyver split up, their relationship shattered against the unforgiving anvil of atomic power. Returning to the present, MacGyver shakes off the flashback in time to see Amy's car approaching. Then Amy's car blows up! And that kind of ruins Mac's day. We pick things up after the commercial to find MacGyver picking through the wreckage of Amy's car. And there are some police on the scene too, but they don't seem all that interested. MacGyver and Amy's old college classmate Tim shows up. He worked with Amy at the power plant and just heard what happened, and he's played by Robert Englund, so he's definitely a good guy, okay? Tim's like, MacGyver? It's me, Tim. I recognize you, Tim. We all look exactly the same as we did in 1973. The police chief joins the conversation, and he and Tim provide MacGyver with some useful exposition. Amy's parents died in a plane crash last year. Just last night, her and Tim's boss at the nuclear plant was killed in a car accident, and now Amy's dead. She's had a rough time lately. While they talk, MacGyver hands the chief a fragment of the gas tank from Amy's car, like, hey, I was just over there tampering with evidence, and I noticed that this piece of the gas tank has a bullet hole in it with some residue that indicates it was shot with an explosive round. That may have been the cause of the car blowing up. The chief is like, well, I'll certainly look into it. And MacGyver says, thanks. I'd appreciate it if the police department would investigate this murder as a personal favor to me. The chief also informs MacGyver that Amy's memorial service is tomorrow. Her car just exploded. The hulk of it remains smoking. The cops are on the scene. None of Amy's family or friends even know she's dead yet, but somehow the burial arrangements have already been made? Christ! No wonder it's so expensive to live in California. The tax rate needed to fund the Department of Instant Funerals must be astronomical. The next day, MacGyver attends Amy's funeral, which looks very well attended, despite the fact that her remains have barely had time to cool off after the explosion. I'm telling you, those DIF agents, they do good work. Mac walks back to his car after the service and is shocked to find Amy in the back seat. Oh yeah, and she's alive. They drive to her dad's old house so she can explain, which she does, at length, standing in the street. She says, I found evidence that someone has been stealing uranium from the power plant, and I think they're planning to sell it to a foreign country or terrorists or somebody. It's enough uranium to make a bomb. That's why my boss died. Whoever's behind the plot found out he was onto them, and they had him killed. And they tried to have me killed too. Oh, Mac, I'm so afraid the assassins will try to kill me again. MacGyver's like, it's okay. Let's just continue to stand here out in the open in front of your father's house while you answer a few more questions I have, and then we'll go inside. It turns out it was Amy's roommate Bonnie driving the car when it exploded. Amy sent Bonnie to meet MacGyver because she was too scared to come herself. They finally go in the house, where MacGyver makes Amy some coffee, and they decide their best move is to go to the power plant, retrieve an inventory report Amy's stashed away that proves uranium is missing from their stockpile. Before they leave, Mac and Amy share a kiss, and Amy says, I still remember how you taste. And Mac's like, well, yeah, you just kissed me 5 seconds ago, a goldfish would remember. Meanwhile, at the nuclear plant, Tim and a security guard are hanging out in a control room. Tim is morosely paging through his old college yearbook, remembering the days when he could still dream of amounting to something because he's obviously grown up to be such an abject failure. The security guard is watching a baseball game, and apparently he and Tim have $5 riding on it, and things are looking good for Captain Rent-A-Cop. Tim's like, we'll see. Also, just to reiterate, I am definitely a good guy. MacGyver and Amy arrive at the plant. The guard at the front gate lets them right through, no questions asked, doesn't even stop them so he can apologize to Amy for missing her funeral. They go straight to the nuclear waste disposal chamber where Amy has cleverly hidden that incriminating inventory report. But as they're inside the chamber, with Amy casually showing MacGyver around like a realtor hosting an open house, a mysterious figure in a radiation suit sneaks up outside the chamber and locks them in. Then, the waste disposal process is activated. MacGyver and Amy have only minutes left before a torrent of superheated nuclear waste comes pouring into the chamber. What do? What do? Easy. MacGyver pries off an access panel next to the door of the chamber and rewires the time lock so that its clock runs down super fast. The lock opens just before the nuclear waste arrives, and MacGyver and Amy are able to make their escape. While Mac is working on the lock, Amy's like, you should run for president, Mac. And MacGyver says, nah, I'd rather have this problem than his problem. Undiagnosed Alzheimer's disease. Tim, who saw the unscheduled waste dump on his status board, comes running over and is surprised and overjoyed to see that Amy is alive because he's Amy's friend and is definitely a good guy. Back in the control room, they fill in Tim on what's been going on and go over their next move. MacGyver thinks the stolen uranium is probably still here at the power plant, since it wouldn't make sense to move it somewhere else until it was time to transfer it to the buyer. So, Mac and Amy don radiation suits and go looking for the stolen uranium. They find it in the same room as the rest of the uranium, only hidden in the concrete base of a sign. They head to the decontamination room to get out of their radiation suits, and Tim's standing there waiting for them with a gun. Tim's a bad guy? What the hell? Who saw that coming? Tim's the inside man for the scheme to steal the uranium, and now that MacGyver and Amy have enough evidence to go to the cops, they have to die. But MacGyver doesn't think Tim has it in him to shoot them. He says, "Tim, we all know you're too much of a pathetic wuss to pull the trigger. Who are we kidding? You're gonna shoot us? You sad, failed human being. Yeah, right. You got no guts, Tim. You got no guts and you got no heart. And that's why we're gonna walk out of here and you're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it except maybe piss your own pants. That's if you can manage not to fuck that up too, you soft-penised loser." And MacGyver and Amy walk out, while Tim points the gun at them and shouts at them to stop, until they reach the end of the hallway, round the corner, and walk away, leaving Tim standing there, gun still in hand, his arm hanging at his side, just as limp and useless as the flaccid penis in his pants. Returning to the control room, Mac and Amy find the security guard, and Mac's like, "Time to call the cops." But then the cops show up, in the person of the chief, and he's got his gun out, and he's like, "I'm a bad guy too. Me and Tim were in on it together, and I'm going to sell the uranium to someone, and they're going to give me $50 million. But first, I'm going to shoot you." Tim rushes in like, "No, don't shoot them. I may be impotent in every sense of that word, but I'm no killer." Tim and the chief struggle, and Tim ends up taking a bullet in the gut. Everyone else dives for cover as the chief fires off a few more shots. He misses MacGyver and Amy, but hits the security guard in the arm and the control console, which triggers an imminent nuclear meltdown. The chief's like, "Welp, better get that uranium and vamoose," and takes off. MacGyver, Amy, and a rapidly bleeding out Tim hatch a quick plan to avert a meltdown. If MacGyver can climb to the top of the reactor and manually open a valve, the cooling system should lower the temperature and prevent the meltdown. On the way to the reactor, MacGyver runs into the chief, who is attempting to get away with his stolen uranium. MacGyver is like, "Are you really going to sell that uranium to someone who's going to use it to build a bomb that could kill hundreds of thousands of people?" And the chief's like, "Nobody said that's what they're going to do with it." Sure, there's all kinds of reasons why someone might want to lay their hands on some black market uranium. Maybe they want to create their own Incredible Hulk, or build a cancer factory. The chief shoots at MacGyver, misses, and blows a hole in a pipe, blasting the chief with radioactive steam. Amy shows up and notices that the chief's radiation exposure badge has turned black, which, if you consult the color chart back in the decon room, you will see indicates a "they dead" level of exposure. Mac and Amy help the chief off to the decontamination shower, then resume their mission to prevent the meltdown. They climb to the top of the tower. Amy sprays Mac with water to reduce his radiation exposure while he tries to open a valve, but Mac drops the wrench. How's he going to save the day now? Fortunately, he grabbed the chief's gun back there. So MacGyver quickly disassembles the gun, removing the cylinder and slipping the open space around the nut of the valve. It just so happens to fit perfectly, turning the gun into something it was never intended to be: useful. Using his new gun wrench, MacGyver opens the valve, successfully cooling down the reactor and preventing the meltdown. He and Amy celebrate, and then we cut back to the control room to watch Tim die, his frustrated abortion of an existence finally coming to a merciful end, the life leaving his body as his bowels void their remaining feces in a final act of wretched humiliation. But enough of that. Back to MacGyver and Amy. It sure was nice to see each other again. They still have their memories and their friendship, and as they share a parting embrace, and Amy watches as MacGyver drives away, I can't help but ponder the bright futures which lie ahead for them both. Unlike the chief, and of course Tim, both of whom have no doubt been laid to rest by now thanks to the tireless professionals at the California Department of Instant Funerals. Thank you for your service, proud agents of the DIF. You're worth every penny. Like many series fortunate enough to have nice long runs, MacGyver takes much of its first season figuring out its identity. By the time we get to Flame's End, a little more than halfway through the season, the show has more or less found that identity. It wouldn't keep it. One of the charms of MacGyver is how it morphs from one kind of show to another multiple times throughout its run. But in Flame's End, MacGyver has settled on a coherent, cohesive personality. The gimmick of the opening gambit, a cold open showing MacGyver inventing or improvising his way out of a jam that was unrelated to the story of the following episode, has been dropped. There's a hint of international intrigue with the stolen uranium being sold to a mysterious buyer who wants to make a bomb plot. MacGyver's refusal to use guns and his strongly felt moral opposition to guns in general is in place. There's a death trap to escape in the middle of the episode and a final puzzle that needs solving in order to save the day. And there's a personal connection for MacGyver, in this case through his old flame, Amy. Most importantly, all of this is ridiculous as hell. The flashback with MacGyver and Amy appearing as their younger selves but looking exactly the same ages. The hysterical car bombing scene complete with MacGyver's silent Amy scream and slow motion running and crying. MacGyver helping himself to evidence from the burned out car and the cops just kind of being okay with it. The leaden and obvious foreshadowing of Robert Englund's Tim character turning out to be one of the bad guys. The fact that Amy is scared enough to allow everyone to believe she's dead and sneak into MacGyver's car, but fine standing in front of her father's house to discuss the situation with MacGyver for several minutes before going inside the house, which they could have done at any time before that. The plot holes that go completely unaddressed. Did the security guard at the front gate seriously have no reaction at all to Amy, a senior member of the staff who was supposed to be dead, turning up to work, alive and well? Who was the guy in the radiation suit who was stalking Amy in the first scene and locked MacGyver and Amy in the waste disposal chamber? Was that the police chief? Or Tim? Or someone else? In most other shows, these absurdities and inconsistencies and gaps in logic would be brought up as criticisms, but when it comes to MacGyver, I mean them as compliments. Whether it's the unintentional humor, the implied, who cares, shrug regarding the ostensible shortcomings of the show on the part of its creators, and if they don't give a shit about things like the plot or understandable character motivations, why should we? Or the confidence and likability of Richard Dean Anderson holding it all together, MacGyver just works. That's why I call it the best bad TV show ever made. It shouldn't work, but it does. It works better than lots of more conventionally good shows. MacGyver himself, the character, not just Richard Dean Anderson's performance of him, is of course a big part of what makes the show work too. Through all the show's many inconsistencies, the vagueness about his age, the ever-changing and expanding backstory, the endless list of former careers and specialized skills, MacGyver always feels like the same guy. The same decent, honest, righteous, socially conscious, and conscientious guy. He seems constant and dependable despite embodying several seemingly irreconcilable contradictions. He's been everywhere and done everything and is obviously in peak physical and mental condition, yet he comes across as an everyman. He's clearly a genius, but never reads as a nerd. He studied physics because it was interesting, man, not because he wanted to spend the rest of his life staring at gauges in some power plant. Come on! This episode touches on that aspect of his character and introduces another that will become somewhat of a trope as the series goes on. Trope, running gag, depends on how you look at it, I guess. It's related to MacGyver's ex-girlfriends. It's the concept that in the years since they split up, MacGyver has gotten over her, but she's never gotten over MacGyver. Amy Austen is not the most extreme example of this. There's another one much later in the series, an ex of Max who has seriously never gotten over him. But Amy fits the category nonetheless. It's not that she's spent all these years pining over him in misery. She seems to be doing okay, except for the whole "I've stumbled onto an international criminal conspiracy involving the illegal sale of nuclear material and the people behind it are trying to kill me" deal. But I can't help but notice that she doesn't seem to be seeing anyone else. No mention of her ever being married or divorced. She's a young, attractive, professionally successful woman. Her old college chum Tim is right there and seems very up for it. I know she'd never date Tim. To even agree to go out with Tim once would be to give up the hope that her life would ever be good and jettison the very concept of self-worth. But she would have options, is my point. But no, I guess she felt that no one could ever live up to MacGyver. And of course she's right. Dating one of MacGyver's ex-girlfriends would be like dating Steve Trevor after he broke up with Wonder Woman. What are you even thinking? Forget about it. MacGyver, on the other hand, he's fine. He still has feelings for Amy. He carries some wistfulness about their relationship and the way it ended and what might have been had they stayed together, but he's also clearly moved on. As we'll discover as the series continues, he's moved on again and again and again and again. We'll get there, though. I'm not going to devote every MacGyver video I do from now on to an appearance by an ex, but I will return to this subject from time to time and share with you another story of one of the many loves of MacGyver. There are plenty to choose from. We meet quite a few of Mac's old flames through the years, but no list of MacGyver's many loves would be complete without his first love. Or the first love we see. She's not his first love chronologically, according to his character history, to the extent said history even exists as a defined linear concept. Amy! The one that got away and drove up the coast to work at the nuclear plant and kept her drink covered whenever Tim was around.